Hello, today we are here to discuss Earth, the game, not the actual planet.
Right.
You know, we might actually discuss
Someday.
the planet Earth at some point.
Just not right now.
Yeah, well, it could be part of the conversation. We might actually mention that this is...
Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, either way, before we get into discussing the board game Earth, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell down there so you can hear all the different astronomical planets and such that we discuss in our reviews.
We got plenty of other games that would fit that. So,
yes.
Yeah.
So, Rob, what can you tell us about this release?
All right. So this is our Kickstarter release that came out this year, 2023. So not that long ago, actually, about a month or so ago. Rating is 7.9. It's ranked at 362. So pretty good ranking for such a new game. Ages 13 and up, which I could agree with that. There's some complexity to the game. Plays 1 to 5 people in about 90 minutes, but it took us significantly longer than 90. Designed by Maxime Tardif. Art's by Connor McGoey, I believe, Julius Sozanek, and M81 Studio, published by Inside Up Games. Now, we got various price differences. So MSRP for the retail version, which I believe is still pre-order, it's $50. So not a bad price for the game. Card House has it down to $45.
Yeah, I think it's already out.
Is it?
Yeah, retail's out. It took me forever to get mine because I ordered mine
through Game Steward,
and
for the Kickstarter
are notoriously slow. They used to be really good. Now they're super slow about delivering.
So yeah, $45 for the retail. The Kickstarter was only $42 if you got into the initial Kickstarter.
Yeah,
but it is going for some crazy prices online. I've seen it go $200-300 on eBay, Mercari, and other websites. So you'll just have to wait. Or get the retail version for a reasonable price, or you're going to have to wait until this comes down.
Yeah, this
for Kickstarter.
Very reminiscent of when Ark Nova came out.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing. I think that they didn't expect the demand to be as high as it was, and didn't
just
print enough.
People price gouging it.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's talk about what you get in the box. Now, this is again the Kickstarter version. The Kickstarter version comes with these wooden triangles, which they consider to be soil. We kept referring to them as poop.
This is what it looks like.
It also has these wooden leaves to replace the cardboard leaves. And then I'm not sure if this part of it is specific to the Kickstarter or not, but these green wooden cubes were actually in the box. And the only reason why
I think so is because when I was pulling out the other cardboard leaves of them.
But the cardboard was atrocious, particularly for these
teeny tiny little cardboard cubes,
squares.
Easily you can lose.
Yeah.
Them.
So I would be definitely recommending trying to get the upgraded version just for those green cubes if they're not in the retail.
Yeah, I agree.
The green cardboard was bad.
Yeah.
So as far as cards are the majority of this game. The cards do not have a linen finish; they're smooth finished.
But it's a pretty good sturdy card, though. Yeah. It's a pretty good thickness to it.
I definitely am going to be sleeving these.
For sure.
But the thing is it's already a monster stack of cards you get. I mean, there's a ton of cards.
A ton.
There's the Earth cards that stack about, well, it was about 8 inches tall.
It took a while to shuffle the whole thing.
Yeah. And then you have a bunch of other auxiliary decks that are two-sided cards. That you're going to need to have see-through sleeves, so you don't want to get sleeves that have a backing on them,
right?
Particularly for those, probably for all of them, really.
Yeah, I would suggest doing like the clears, the matte clears.
Yeah, and then you've got cardboard play mats for the players.
And those are pretty decent shape. I mean, I kind of wish there was a little bit of inlay so the cards didn't slide around so much because that happened a lot. Yeah, but other than that, they're pretty good.
Yeah, the cardboard does have a linen finish on it. And then the cardboard is very much like Agricola, where they've got it set up so one side is for solo play or different variants on the play, and the other side, so you have to make sure you got the right side facing up for it. The central board is also a player board. It's actually thinner than the other player mats, though.
And it's actually bowing a little bit.
It's not as nice. And there's two sides on it too. One is kind of the beginner game, and one is the standard game. And then there's a little score pad you get too, but mostly it's the cards and then the little bits of wood that you get for building your sprouts or whatever, the growths.
So it's the plants, the flora. So yeah.
So all in all, I don't think there's anything stellar about the pieces. I don't think there's anything amazing about it's definitely for the upgrade. It's not. It feels more like a standard edition when you put the upgrades in.
I agree, just because it's just plain green cubes, and I mean the tops, the plain tops look okay, but they're all the same.
Yeah.
Just different color.
Yeah.
So it'd be kind of nice if there's some variant in that, but it's okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably going to give it maybe a 6.5. I don't think it's anything outstanding. And
I think I'll go a little bit higher just because there's so much of it. I'm going to go with 7 just because there's a lot of wood in the game. And so that probably wasn't a cheap investment on their part. So yeah, I'll go with 7.
All right, so moving on to theme. So this is all about growing plant life, and some the animals in it are really more for the scoring, but
yeah,
it's mostly about building plants and having different terrain types that you're going to be building into your tableau. So you've got kind of an island you're constructing that's a 4x4 grid, and you've got some starter cards that tell you kind of what your resources are and give you a special ability. Everybody has a custom ability on your starter cards.
And it kind of gives you a starting point too, as far as what cards you want to look for as for scoring. But there's so many cards that it could be very highly likely you never see one.
Yeah, there's a ton of cards, and you can, there's the guides, as Rob mentioned, that you can kind of use. There's 4 scoring cards for whoever gets them first. And then there's also in-game scoring. There's 2 that are standard for everybody, and 1 that's your own personal
your private one.
And you can go for those, but honestly, it's hard to keep track of what all of them are. It's going to be probably best to focus on 1 or 2 of them and try to get those things, and then hope you get kind of lined up for the others. Kind of keep them in the back of your mind. But yeah, I managed to pull off getting all of them, but not first. But at least I got them second, if not better. But it was tough, and I had probably sacrificed points in the process because I didn't end up winning.
You focused on those instead of other things.
Yeah, that was the thing. There's so many ways to score in this, which is one of the pros in this game.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think thematically the art, it's just photos that looks like stock photos, very similar to like Terraforming Mars, but they're pretty because they're animals and terrain types that you might see on the Earth, and they're pretty well done photos.
I agree.
So, as far as the look of this, I'm probably going to give it a 7. I don't think it's superb.
No, but, I agree with that, but I am going to go higher. I am, and for a really good reason. I think that mechanically the theme is really good because there's like this. We'll talk about in gameplay, but you got soil, and the soil grows the plants, and the plants can then turn back into soil. And just by the different mechanics that you can do, and it all really fits really well thematically. So I like that a lot, and it just makes sense. The things you do. It's logical that these are the things that would happen as a result for the actions that you do. So I'm going to go a little bit higher.
Well, the other thing, the one thing I didn't like is they have 4 different colors of toppers. Yeah. And right now, at least, they have no purpose.
Right.
They're just cosmetic.
There's table presence, I guess, if you got, kind of, it's not a city, but that's kind of what it looks like.
Yeah.
You got these different towers with different tops. It would certainly be eye-catching if you walk by and you see a group of people playing the game. But yeah, as far as we're thinking that maybe there will be an expansion that it would make more sense to do that.
It seems like
but right now it's just if there's no real thematic reason for it.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think it's that high because of that. There's just things like that seems like they should have functionality and don't. And maybe in the solo play they do. I don't know, but I didn't see anything in this play that did. So moving on to the rulebook. So the rulebook is 16 pages. It's got kind of a third cover in the top of it, and then it goes straight into the objective of the game and kind of the credits for the game. It's got a nice section for setting it up, although the components are not real clear as far as which decks it's talking about. It's not, it doesn't show like the actual photos. It's got letters referencing the setup picture, it makes it a little more confusing than having this is this item, here's that item.
Yeah. So this setup was a little, not hard, but it was a little confusing.
Yeah. The actual explanation of the rules wasn't too bad. There was, the iconography got a little confusing a few times, but not
a couple times. But there is, you don't. The player boards do a really good job of the
Yeah.
iconography, so it really helps
Yeah.
with the rule book because we didn't need to really access the rule book.
No, the only time we actually found an issue with missing rules from it was that, like the cards, when it showed the text combined with the iconography, sometimes there was like two
Yeah.
minus or different references where it's not represented on the iconography.
Yeah, it wasn't worded well
Yeah.
on some of the cards. Now, thankfully, it wasn't that many.
Yeah,
You know,
we
came
just
across
implied it because we went
Yeah.
to Board Game Geek. We couldn't find an answer, so we just inferred that it meant 2 or less.
Yeah,
instead
but
of,
for the most part, it was okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. There's a couple cards that was kind of tough.
yeah, and then there it seems to be an obsession in the rulebook with percentages.
Yeah.
So and on the cards, but yeah, they as you go through the read, it's like at some point you get to a point where it says if you stop now, you've read 90% of the rules, and it's like, oh, that's great to know.
Yeah,
you know?
thank you for sharing.
Thanks, it's like kind of like the loading screen on the computer, and then it says if you look and read the bottom of your player mat, you're
at
95% complete. So the rest of the rules are basically for one-off questions. Unfortunately, the rest of the rules were not for one-off questions because the event cards were not even mentioned
Right.
up until after that point. So it wasn't clear what you did with them. So you had to kind of read that.
Mhm.
The rest of it was kind of superfluous information unless you were having a question, but none of them were specific cards. It was all
Right.
like the type of card and what you do with it.
And then the other odd part, you mentioned the percentage on the card,
Yeah.
which we thought was strange because if there was an expansion, which we hope there will be,
I assume that it will be.
yeah, it will totally throw the percentage of
Yeah.
the card out of the window.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to reprint all the cards. And
Yeah.
I can't imagine they would do that.
No,
it
there's no
seemed
way.
a really bad idea to put it on the card. If you're going to do that, that's one of those things that you should have a cheat sheet to reference it.
Right.
But then again, then you're listing every card combination, basically.
But the other thing I question is why even put it on there? There's
Well-
so many cards that it's like, I don't care if there's 10% or not, because how likely am I going to see it out of this
Well,
huge stack
that's
of
why.
cards?
Well, I think that's exactly why they did it. Because I got one that said it was 40%, 7% chance of getting it based upon the cards that were in the deck. So I could say, okay, I've got a better likelihood of finishing this bonus than like Adam had one that was 20-something%. So I think that's why they put it on there. But yes, I agree totally. It makes no sense because when you add an expansion, those percentages have gone out the window.
They're just done.
So it seems a waste.
So what would you give the rulebook?
I'm probably going to go ahead and give it a 7. I think it does a decent job.
I think we learned it pretty well.
Yeah, and we got through it.
And the player boards do help a lot with the iconography.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and that was a smart move to put it right on the player
Yeah.
mat. I mean, the player boards are larger than you typically see, but as long as you've got space. You've got it's a table hog in the sense that it's a 5-player game. I don't know where we would have put a 5th player other than to use auxiliary tables.
Yeah,
but 4 players, it worked fine on this size table.
Yeah.
So moving on to the gameplay. So first of all, like I said, we have a central board that has 4 scoring sections on it, which are during the game. If you're the first to complete it, you can put your leaf on it. You've got 5 leaves.
Fauna.
Yeah.
So 4 scoring fauna.
Yeah, and you mark it, and there's a score from 15 for the first player down to 5 for the last player to complete it. So the earlier you get it, the more points you're going to get. Then there's 2 shared cards that are in-game scoring cards that, if you meet the criteria, you can actually score them multiple times, depending on how many of the criteria you've met, how many times you met it, but they have to be distinct cards meeting the criteria. And then you've got your own personal board that has basically 3 starter cards on it, which is one that sets your resources you're going to get at the beginning of the game and may give you some kind of a perk or ability.
I wouldn't really call them a starter card, though. I mean, you do start with them, but it's a random.
Yeah,
you have it, and the replayability is huge on this game because each one of these cards that we're calling starter cards are 2-sided.
Yeah, they're 2-sided.
So you get to pick which side you want, but there's probably at least 30.
There's a bunch,
and each stack. So every game you're going to play, as far as these initial cards that you start with, I just, the starter cards, I always think of starter cards as everyone has the same cards, and these are the ones you start with.
Yeah, no, these,
and it's not like that.
it's all variable abilities.
Yeah.
And if you get advanced in the game, it says to deal 2, and you get to pick one, which gives you 4 options. So, and I think that later on we'll probably want to go in and do that.
Yeah,
I think it will give you better control of the game, of the way you like to play.
Because it'd be really cool if you'd be lucky enough to find these starter cards that would work together really well and be able to score even more points.
And then you get a climate card, and it has 2 sides as well, and it gives you a special ability, and as well as it's got icons at the top. And the icons are very similar to what you would see in Terraforming Mars or Ark Nova.
Yeah, those tags that you look for.
They referenced by the cards to give you other perks. So I had a nice combo with mine where I got to get cubes if I got a certain terrain type. So when I tried to build a lot of those, but it ended up benefiting you more than me. That's probably what gave you the game. I actually scored the points for you because
it helped me out a lot.
Because you got bonuses for that same type. So yeah, I wish I would have had that card instead.
You would have rocked if you had that card.
So you can get some nice synergies between your cards, and then you have your own personal in-game scoring. Again, 2-sided. You get to choose which side you're going to play.
Yeah.
So I think it was a good decision to have the 2-sided cards.
I do too.
And then your tableau is empty at the beginning, so you're building a 4x4 grid throughout the game, and you're doing that there's 4 basic actions you can take. It's very simple. Whoever's in control for the turn puts this marker at the top. Now, this is another Kickstarter improvement. It's a wooden one. There's a cardboard one. I actually like the art on the cardboard one because it's got a cute little fox or something. This one's just got a plant, but it's wooden.
It's pretty
chunky.
Yeah.
So you get to put it somewhere and choose one of the actions, starting with the first one, which is planting. So you can plant, and then whoever does it gets the option of planting twice as opposed to one time. But everybody else can follow by playing. They got a leaf that marks it to say, I'm taking that action too.
Very similar to Puerto Rico.
Yeah, and then they get a lesser perk, which is that they can plant 1. Yeah. And then everybody gets to draw a card, but the person who took the action gets to draw 4 cards, keep which one they want, and discard the rest of them. The second action is to acquire soil. Yeah. Its primary function. So the person taking the action gets 5 soil and also gets to take 2 cards from the deck and put them in their compost pile. So the compost pile is in essence a discard pile, but the cards are out of the game once they're in there. Yeah. You'll have cards that reference the compost pile to let you remove them for perks, or these are all worth victory points at the end of the game. I had a lot of cards that took cards out of my compost pile, so I didn't give very many points from it at the end of the game. I had 1 card left. But I think Miranda had a bunch of cards in her compost pile.
I had like 28.
Oh, you did too. Yeah. So, it depends on your combo of cards, how much you're going to find in there. But there's so many ways to score. It's not a big deal if you don't have it in there because you can make up the points. I mean, you and I were just a few points apart, and we had totally different strategies. The lesser action for that action gives 2 soil to everybody, or you can do 2 cards from the deck and put them in your compost pile. So the other's an and option. This is an or option, and it's a lesser ability.
So generally, your primary is better, where the secondary is okay.
Yeah, and then I had a nice combo with that. With my ability was that anytime I took the action of red, I also got to add 2 of these growths to my cards, which that helped me a lot. So then you have the blue action is for gaining cubes. Now, cubes are basically sprouts that you put on your cards, and they have lots of functions too. They're worth 1 victory point apiece at the end of the game if you have them. But you can remove them to get other perks.
And that's where I had my combos. I was able to add a lot of sprouts, but remove a lot of sprouts.
Yeah, me too.
To do some really cool things.
So you can I had a combo where you could remove sprouts to generate 2 of the growths, or you could remove 1 growth to grow 2 cubes of the sprouts. So you could go back and forth with that engine depending on what color was chosen. The colors will then, once you build them, as you'll play the cards, you're going to have those icons and those colors on the cards that you can then trigger at the end of the round, which that is really cool, where your engine gets going, which we'll get to talk about in a minute.
And I had a really nice combo with blue. I don't think you actually got to see me do it because I only got to do it 1 time. But I had a blue card that allowed me to remove 1 compost to grow 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had another card that allowed me to copy a blue card.
Oh,
So
wow.
I got to discard 2 compost cards, which is 2 victory points, but get 6 cubes. I was able to do that 2 times, and I got 15 points out of it. So it was really cool.
Wow. So then the last action is for gaining cards, because early in the game, cards were hard to come by for me, but later on I got some nice engine work where I got cards.
Yeah, I never had a problem with cards.
And, so there the person taking the action gets 4 cards, and they can also create 2 growths on their tiles. Everyone else can either take 2 cards or 2 growths.
Right.
So you get to follow, and then after everybody's done following, then that's when everybody can run their engine. So anything that matches the color of the icon of the type they're triggering will fire. And you have to choose. You can fire the ones on your board first, or you can fire the ones in your tableau.
But you still get to do both. You just have to choose which one goes off first.
Yeah, triggering the ones in the tableau from top to bottom, left to right.
Right.
So the way you arrange your cards
is
very important in the game. And some of the cards specifically will give bonuses or perks for having a certain placement, whether they're in the right column or the right row.
It'll look cards next to it and adjacent to it. Like I had a card that looked for the column, and it was like for each mushroom column, I got 3 extra points.
Right.
And I was lucky enough that I placed it. I didn't know I was going to get that card, but I was lucky enough to have 2 mushrooms in that column. So I got 6 points off of that.
So it's a really neat system of how they combined the tableau building, the engine building, and trying to get the
strategy of
the
placement.
Of the placement. And you have to keep it within the parameters of that 4x4 grid, which we've seen games like that where you can go any direction, but you got to meander in such a way that ultimately you get a 4x4 grid.
And for the most part, once you place it, it's stuck. I mean, there's some ways to manipulate it a little
there's
bit.
a few cards that I think Adam had one where you could swap out a card.
Right.
But in general, once it's stayed down, it's pretty much done.
Yeah. I agree though. It's really interesting with all those different mechanics that fit into this game.
And this, what this reminds me is, when we play Terraforming Mars, I always said, if people would stop trying to actually terraform Mars and let me build my engine, it would be the perfect game. Well,
this is just building the engine.
This is all about building the engine. There is no terraforming Mars. There is no terraforming Earth. It's, there's nothing that's going to end the game other than building those cards out. So my bigger frustration was the fact that the game ended after 16 cards were played. It's like, that's what you're...
But he's the one that ended the game on.
Well, but it made the most sense.
It did, because, I'd have been able to score some more points.
So, basically, it's all about getting those cards down and getting them arranged properly and getting the engine to kick off the way you want it to. And,
and I like the fact, too, that you do control the speed of the game, because you could choose not to plant cards.
Yeah.
And if you choose not to, that slows the game up quite a bit.
And what was interesting is Adam kept taking the green action, which is where you build them.
But I don't think he was building 2.
He was in building 2.
Yeah, he was just building 1 as the primary action.
I was afraid he was going to run away with building it super fast, and I ended up catching up with him. So, it's really all about that engine building, and I love it. I love the fact that it focuses on that, and there's so many diverse ways to do it. It's not... I'm going to build, and everybody has to build the same engine. It's totally different engines based upon the cards you get. And, there's a lot of ways to score points. You have, as a matter of fact, the score sheet has, 10 or so different rows in here for scoring. Some of them are the same as far as the 3 green in-game bonuses. Each have their own row. But basically you play until somebody's finished their tableau, and then you complete that round, and whoever finished it first gets 7 bonus points at the end, which it kept saying, it was funny, as it kept saying, don't forget those 7 points.
And he forgot.
I forgot my 7 points at the end. Because we were laughing as we were reading rules about how it kept referencing, don't forget those 7 points. Well, now I know why, because it's very easy when you're scoring, because the score sheet doesn't have a separate row for that.
Right.
So
I do want to point out, though, that the game can be swinging, just like Terraforming Mars can be swinging. You can totally get screwed if you don't draw the right cards. And so I think that's what adds the strategy to it, too, is that, recognizing the card that you have and being able to place it and then be able to score off of it. But at the same time, if you don't draw it, it can hurt.
Well, yeah, but I think that's also where you have to be flexible and adjust your
I agree.
card play.
But I just want to make sure I put that out there because you really have to pay attention to that.
So, yeah, bottom line is if you like games like Terraforming Mars and you like the engine building aspects of it, or you like Ark Nova or any of those kind of games, this is like those, but it doesn't have a lot of the extraneous build stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you're not building your zoo out and laying things out. You're not building out your planet and filling in the board. You know, so it's I guess more like the Terraforming Ares expedition.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit more streamlined.
But you know, I like this better than Ares expedition, a lot better. So I think this is closest thing to a substitute, I would say, for playing a long game like Terraforming Mars or Ark Nova.
Yeah,
you know, I felt fulfilled after playing this and not wishing I'd been playing one of those other games.
Right.
So this is definitely a more satisfactory game than Ares Expedition. I'm probably going to give this one. I'm probably between 8.5 and 9 on it. I think I've been reluctant to give 9s this year so far, but this one might be my first 9 of the year.
I think I agree with 8.5. It's a really satisfying game, and there's I like the fact that there's so many options, but at the same time, it's not one of those games that's going to you can grow with it and learn more strategies. I think it's pretty straightforward in that. It's just what cards you get, taking advantage of those cards, and you move forward. But it's not like it's got 13 different ways of scoring. It's just scored off cards or score off in-game scoring.
Well, it doesn't have, but I think there's a lot of versatility in those cards. In ways that you get those points.
As far as the variety, I completely agree. Yeah. But it's still going to be the same type of scoring. So I mean, I'd say there's probably 2 or 3 passive scoring, and then that's it. And that's going to be fun. Don't get me wrong. But unlike Power Grid or some other games that have so many different ways and strategies into it, it doesn't have that. Yeah. But it's a solid game. I'm at 8.5 easy.
Yeah. Well, that's our thoughts on Earth. Mm-hmm. So if you've got a chance to play it, let us know what you think. You know, I was hoping I'd get to play it a lot sooner than I did. Unfortunately, it took a while for mine to arrive.
And I heard every bit of it.
Yeah. So it's bad because my sister kept constantly reminding me how she had hers, which just ate at me. So there's that.
Oh.
So anyway, give it a try if you haven't.
Yeah, highly recommended.
Definitely, it's one that's going to hit our table a lot, I know.
Sure.
So, all right, until next time, you keep on playing and finding your favorite planet to play on.
We all have one choice.
We're going to stick with Earth.
Yeah.
All right, talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.